If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This is episode 3 of Adeptus Custodes, What's Winning Right Now. This week, we cover a Solar Spearhead list played by Cameron Giles, who went 5-0 to win the Cross-Swords GT. This list is a variation on the list by Folger Pals that we covered on episode 1. It does have many similar units. I've added or cut some things out of the unit breakdown, so it's not just the same info as episode 1. Let's take a look at the list, the path to victory, and then finish with a unit breakdown and a general game plan. Let's take a look at Cameron's Solar Spearhead list. It came to 2,000 points. The Warlord was a Blade Champion with the Adamantine Talisman enhancement. The only other character was a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought with a Augury uplink for that 5+ Feel No Pain. For his other datasheets, he had a 4-man unit of Custodian Wardens with the Guardian Spears and the Vexilla, 3 Venerable Dreadnoughts with the Multi-Meltas and the Combat Weapon, 1 other Telemon Heavy Dreadnought. Both of these Dreadnoughts had the Arachna Storm Cannon with the Telemon Fist Weapon, 2 units of 4 Prosecutors, 2 Caladius Grav Tanks with the Arachna's Heavy Blaze Cannon, and then finally, for his allied units, he had a Calidus Assassin and a Eversor Assassin. Let's look at the path to victory for Cameron and his Adeptus Custodes. Game 1, he played against the Eldari, which was a 65-45 win. Game 2 against the World Eaters, which was a decisive 97-54 win. Game 3, once again, was the World Eaters, a pretty strong victory at 89-69. Game 4 was against the Death Guard, and that was a 71-54 win. Finally, Game 5 was against the Orcs, and this was his closest game at an 86-79 win. The Adeptus Custodes win the tournament with a 5-0 record. Cameron got a total of 408 out of the 500 points. Congratulations to Cameron Giles once again for a victory with the Adeptus Custodes. Now for a quick breakdown of the units in Cameron's list. We'll start with the Blade Champion with the 4 Wardens. The Blade Champion has the Adamantine Talisman enhancement, and it works on all 3 of his damage profiles, and bringing that Victus Devastating Wounds damage profile up to damage 4 is scary. The 4 Wardens are to keep the Blade Champion safe, dealing out big damage in the fight phase. The unit will have a once per game Advance in Charge and a once per game 4-up Feel No Pain, as well as -1 to the wound roll if the incoming attack strength is higher than the Warden's toughness 6. The unit will most likely stage with the purpose to push the mid-objective. It could even be put in reserve as a rapid ingress threat. It is the highest OC unit in the list. Even in the Solar Spearhead, 1 unit of Blade Champion Wardens is very effective. Next up is our 2 Telemon Heavy Dreadnoughts. One of the Dreadnoughts is made into a character, so he has that Augury uplink enhancement to give him that 5+ Feel No Pain. And these are fantastic in the Solar Spearhead. They add a bunch of survivability to a Solar Spearhead list. This list only has 2 this time, but it is still a tough list. Toughness 10, 12 wounds with a 2-up save and 4-up invulnerable, with the Eternal Guardian ability giving them -1 to the incoming damage. Cameron does have the Fist Weapon and the Arachna Storm Cannon for some anti-infantry shooting, and then 5 attacks in melee with Strength 12, AP 2, Damage 3. The Detachment rule brings them to OC 6 at full strength, and that's great for stealing objectives. It also adds +2 movement and +1 advance in charge to our Dreadnoughts. The Telemon and the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts love Unstoppable, to move them through terrain and ruins to get the drop on enemy units. Relentless Persecution for advance in charge to give these Telemons an average 21-inch advance in charge threat. Flawless Construction for 1 CP, taking incoming attacks that are higher than Strength 10 to be -1 to the wound roll. Also, Emperor's Vengeance for 1 CP for a 3+ fight on death. This can be iffy though, because these are so tough, sometimes you're just going to save your way out and it'll be a waste of CP. It really depends on how many wounds these things have left for Emperor's Vengeance. Then we have the Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts. And like the Telemon, these are fantastic in the Solar Spearhead. The detachment rule brings them up to an 8-inch movement with a 19-inch average advance in charge with Relentless Persecution. They also do not have a degraded profile. They will hit at 2+ if they're at full strength or if they're at 1 wound. And that pairs well with the below starting strength reroll hits of 1 detachment rule. These Venerable Dreadnoughts perform the best into those mono shooting or melee only armies. If you only have one way to take these out and they stand back up at the end of the phase, it makes it really hard to take these out efficiently if you can only take them out with shooting or melee. They have the same melee profile as the Telemon fist weapon. All three of these Dreadnoughts have a multi-melta which can punch out some heavy damage with them. The best thing about them is the unyielding agent's ability. The first time this model is destroyed, you remove it from the battlefield without doing a deadly demise roll, and then at the end of the phase, you roll a d6. On a 2+, you set this model back up as close as possible where it was destroyed, but not within engagement range and with d6 wounds remaining. Remove from the battlefield means we can use Emperor's Vengeance for 1 CP, because it does say before you remove it from the battlefield, you get to fight on death, so potentially you could fight twice with a Venerable Dreadnought. It gets taken out the first time, you use Fight on Death, it comes back to life, and when it gets taken out the second time, you once again use Emperor's Vengeance for Fight on Death. OC5 at full strength is also great for stealing objectives, because like the Telemon, you just charge onto the objective, punch some models out, and hopefully have enough OC to steal that objective from your opponent. Then we have two of the mighty Caladius Grav Tanks. These Grav Tanks add some reliable anti-tank threat. The Solar Spearhead easily has the best rule support for these Caladius Grav Tanks. Unstoppable for 1 CP to go through ruins to get some line of sight. Punishment inescapable allows us to advance and shoot, as well as ignore modifiers to ballistic skill and hit rolls. And that is including if this thing is bracketed. Usually you would be -1 to the hit roll if you're 5 wounds below, but now if you use this stratagem, you get to ignore that. Flawless construction gives these Grav Tanks much better survivability. -1 to the wound roll of incoming attacks that are higher than strength 11, so that's a lot of those las cannons going to be shooting at you. You can use this to give them -1 to the wound roll. The detachment rule makes these Grav Tanks so reliable in the shooting phase. Reroll hits of 1 once below starting strength makes the opponent second guess putting shots into these tanks if they cannot kill them. They might be worried about plinking a few wounds off, and now we'll be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. OC4 goes to OC6 at full strength, and OC6 opens these up to hold or steal objectives in the later turns. Finally, for the Custodes units, we have 2 units of 4 prosecutors. These are great cheap units for doing secondary actions, with the option to leave 1 on the home objective to hold it if there's no real 6-inch deep strike threat or indirect threat to take these off the board early. There is no real stratagem support for these in the Solar Spearhead, but for 40 points a unit, these are for scoring. On to the 2 allied units that Cameron has put in his list. The Calidus Assassin is the best lone op unit we have access to for scoring points. Great for draining CP and ruining the opponent's plans with her 12-inch aura that adds 1 to the CP cost of enemy stratagems. Her ability that allows her to put her into reserves at the end of the enemy turn, along with the deep strike ability, is what makes her so great for secondary scoring. It is a unit that will have a target on its back. The opponent will be trying to take this out at the soonest opportunity. The second assassin in the list was the Eversor Assassin. The Eversor isn't quite as good as the Calidus for scoring and CP disruption. He is a lone operative though, giving him some good utility and scoring. He has some insane turn 1 charge threat. He can easily pick off any infiltrating units that the opponent may be used to try to grab some early objectives, or a very important enemy infantry unit that has deployed a bit too close to the line. The threat to enemy light to medium infantry should give this list even more scoring potential. These 2 assassins should really pile up the secondary score. Next up is the general game plan. I didn't write or win the tournament with these lists, so this is a general game plan. These Solar Spearhead Dreadnought heavy lists are mid-board points deny armies. The Telemons and the Venerable are to overwhelm the enemy with units that they can't kill fast enough. A Dreadnought stack checklist with some tricks. You have an enemy on objective, you run in with one of these Dreadnoughts, punch out enough models that you steal that objective, and you just keep on denying your opponent the points. Use the Dreadnoughts to put constant pressure on objectives and enemy scoring units. The difference between this list and the Folger Piles list is the secondary scoring potential with less points denial. The Assassins, especially the Calidus, makes those enemy deployment secondary draws much easier to achieve. Folger's list that had the 3 Telemons did have that extra Telemon to throw in the enemy's face or steal objectives. Both of those lists have potential as they've won tournaments, showing we have even more list building potential in this new meta. We're not stuck just one build for the Solar Spearhead, we're not just stuck with one build for the Talons of the Emperor. We will finish with some final thoughts. Even though these lists were similar, I wanted to cover it and congratulate Cameron Giles on his win. Another fellow 10,000 showing us we have different ways to build a GT winning list. We now have 2 Solar Spearhead wins and 1 Talons of the Emperor win. What do you guys think will be next? Throw it down in the comments. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.